This is the DRF Players Podcast. Here are your hosts, Peter Thomas Fornatel and Jonathan Kinchin.
Hello and welcome to the DRF Players Podcast. This is the February 6th, 2018 edition, show 307. I'm your host, Peter Thomas Fornatel, back with you in the Brooklyn Salon, Muggs the Handicapping Labrador, alongside. Very excited to be joined today by a man who goes by many nicknames. He is the People's Champion. He is the Rated R Superstar. He is, to borrow another nickname from wrestling, a real American. He is Jonathan Kinchin. JK, what's up?
Man, I appreciate it. I was trying to think, what did I do so nice to Pete to get all of this, all these accolades thrown my way? And I think you're just trying to work on a free dinner or something.
Hey, it's with all the different stuff all that you owe me over the course of the last few months. I think that dinner's been bought and paid for, honestly. But it is good to be back here with you, Jonathan, on the first show since the first ever World Championship of Handicapping. You ended up participating in the event. You went double-barreled. Not so much joy for you along the way. Plenty of joy for Frank Polk.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I don't know if I really want to say I participated. I was not good, but Frank Polk was. So congratulations to him. Love to see the fact I was following along. Obviously, Duke Matisse was in the final cut, so I was kind of following along with Duke to kind of root for him with some rooting interest because I wasn't involved, obviously. And so noticed that when Frank hit that cap horse down at Gulfstream, the 7-horse late, it was really cool from a tournament landscape standpoint that he was the only person that had it. And I think that one of the things that people that play in a lot of contests will realize is that in a normal contest situation with 125 people playing, 111 people playing, that number would have been about times 25 of how many people would have had that horse in that situation. And so I think that was definitely a win by DRF and the WCH by putting in those cut lines.
I'm glad you did that, Jake, and I agree. The cut lines did very much come into play. I was having a conversation on Twitter last week. Unfortunately, I feel a little bad because it was actually a very worthwhile conversation. Paul Matisse chimed in. Unfortunately, one of the people driving the conversation made me irritated, and I had to mute. I didn't quite get to the final point I wanted to make, but it had to do with the idea that, yes, it doesn't eliminate. Cut lines don't eliminate, quote unquote, stabbing, but they make it less effective of a strategy. And more importantly, they make stabbing not as much of a factor simply because the people who are far enough back as the contest goes on to only be playing horses because of the price on the board, a lot of those people are gone. If not all of those people are gone. So, yes, obviously, if you're still $50 out, yeah, it's just game theory. That player is going to have to play that longer priced horse. But isn't it nice to not have the leaderboard completely turned on its head in favor of somebody only playing a horse because of the number on the board? In Frank Polk's case, he liked the horse.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that outside the goalpost doesn't seem to understand is that did you get my joke there?
That was good.
Yeah, outside the goalpost doesn't seem to get is that, all right, if it was wide open, 111 people, there would have been 25 people that were mathematically not going to touch a dollar. And so they would have just said, well, I guess I'll take this cap horse. Then they would have hit the cap horse. Then they would have passed all of those people. So yes, Frank won with the cap horse. That was what kind of elevated him to get where he was. But I feel good about that because he earned his right to be there by making the first cut, and he earned his right to be there by making the second cut. So I feel much better about the fact that even if he was stabbing, which I know he wasn't, but if he was, I feel better about it. It doesn't feel nearly as dirty to me. The other thing is that all those guys that picked up second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth, 10th place money, they should be very happy there's a cut line because they wouldn't have got any money if it would have been 111 people, because 25 people would have had that horse, and they, like you said, the leaderboard would have been flipped. So the idea that the cut line is irrelevant to me no pun intended, outside of the goalpost.
No, it's nonsense, like a lot of stuff that comes out of that guy's mouth. So, there you go. But it's a good point also when you get down to that final round, how having there's a lot of meaningful delineations between the spots. So Frank, in the position where he took the cap horse, he's risking something. He's risking his place in the prize pool. That's what makes it feel better. In other words, maybe he wanted to play the favorite there. Maybe he wanted to play a 6-1 shot, and those would have made him an awful lot of money. It just means that in the position he was in, to me, he's playing that horse because he likes that horse. And I don't think anybody has a problem in a contest with somebody hitting a cap horse who they like. Isn't that kind of the name of the game?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that the problem is that the only issue comes is when someone uses a horse because mathematically they don't have another choice, is what I think maybe gives people, like you say, I've heard you say before, it makes people's teeth itch. Yeah. It just doesn't feel right. We're having handicapping contests, and then they end up turning into a math game of chance. And I don't think that that's why we all kind of fell in love with this game. We fell in love with the puzzle of handicapping, making intelligent, backing intelligent positions and racing where, from a value standpoint. And when someone picks a 26-1 shot because they're not allowed really to pick anyone else in order to give themselves a chance to have any monetary value, then I think we want to try to eliminate that. And I think that the cut lines did do that. I think that, late, the ability to hit horses and change your position and what you were getting. I mean, I think to start the second round, Duke went from he hit 2 winners and went from 14th or 18th to 7th. Well, that's a significant amount of money. I don't have it in front of me, but I think it's somewhere. It's like a $25,000 difference. So I think when we can have a contest format where you can be rewarded for picking winners, even if they're short, and to the effect of $20,000, I think is a good format. And so, like I said, I think the cut lines did their job, and I think the 111 that showed up to play in between the Pegasus and the Big Vegas tournament, I think it was definitely a good thing.
Yeah, and I wouldn't even say you want to eliminate that. I don't know if that's realistic, but minimizing the overall impact it has. For example, let's say, I'm just going to use Duke just because we were just talking about him. Let's say he took a different approach, or maybe he even took this approach as the contest went on. And let's say he, at that point, is really just saying, you know what, most of the money, this is a flat prize structure relative to other tournaments, but most of the money is still at the top. I'm still only going to play cap horses. I'm okay with that because he earned his right to be in that final round and be in that position. It reminds me of here's an interesting analogy. Tell me if you think I'm onto something. At the end of a football game, nobody says when a team hits a 50-yard Hail Mary pass to win the game, nobody says that was a cheap win. But to me, that's but part of that is they stayed within one score, therefore they earned the right to take that Hail Mary pass. The cap does this to some degree in racing, but by adding the cut lines, it prevents that feeling. Doesn't it sometimes feel in mythical play hitting that cap horse late? It's like a 12-point touchdown almost. It's too important for something that you're only playing because you can count to 64.
Yeah, and you didn't mean to do it, right? You know what I mean? It's like getting a Hail Mary, but you didn't mean to do it.
Yeah.
You didn't even. You won't even. It's because it's not like you really had an opinion. Oh, this horse is going to win. I feel bad for the people that actually did like that horse in the last race of a situation where they get accused of stabbing. But I think that it definitely creates a better environment for when there's big money on the line. I'm cool with the way that it is, on a normal Saturday or a normal Wednesday or a normal Sunday. But I think when we're playing for $500,000. And a reminder that it's a no takeout $500,000. I think that there's probably an opportunity to do it a little bit better.
In the end, it was a purse of $555,000, $138,750 to the winner, Frank Polk. A bunch of other people won some good money. I plan on talking to Frank, hopefully shortly after the show, where we'll try to record him for a segment maybe we'll run a little bit later in the week. But I really enjoyed talking to him the first time I did back in 2014. Seems like a good guy.
And I got a point to make. I think outside the goalpost made a comment. Not that he should be getting this much credit, but I worry that people say things that aren't accurate, and then people are like, "Oh, really? Maybe he's right." The fact that there's an argument to try to be made that this is a no takeout contest is ridiculous, because the truth of the matter is, it's a 100% takeout free contest. However, if you want to get cheeky and you think you're smart enough that you can on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday leading up to the event qualify in because you want to turn your 580 into 5,000, then you will be taken out on that, because there's a tournament happening. There's a service being provided. If you wanted to just show up, my 2 entries were takeout free. No one touched my 2 entries. The money that I put in was equal to the equity that I had in the tournament itself. And so there's feeders that there's takeout, but you don't have to participate in those. So when you participate in the final event, you have the choice of buying in for 5,000 or feeding in. So it's just so. Like I said, I tweeted, do you like ice cream? Do you like puppies? Hugs? Do you like long walks on the beach? Do you like superhero movies? Do you like romantic comedies? Like, what is it that, actually that you do like? Do you enjoy your mother's basement? Like, what are the things that you like? So,
low blow. I love it.
I don't understand. It's just frustrating. We have enough negativity surrounding our sport. It's annoying when the people inside of it can't find a way to be a little bit more productive.
I'll make another point on that. What annoys me about senseless complaining is horse players have a lot of legitimate stuff to complain about. There's a lot of things that we can do as horse players to let the powers that be know we're not a bunch of mugs who are going to keep coming back no matter what you give us. And we're paying attention. We're paying attention to the cost of making a wager. We're paying attention to the quality of the product. I mean, we could go on and on about all the serious issues. We're paying attention when you give us rotten data. There's so many real issues. So to drill down, when you just start to complain about everything, especially things that are completely invalid, like this no takeout thing, I think it just paints all horse players. It just makes us all look like a bunch of sour mopes. And I think it lessens the chance of us ever affecting any meaningful change. I really believe that.
100%. There's just too many other things that we could complain about. And here's the other thing is, just learn this in life in general. If you really want to get something done, you really want to change something, being an a-hole does not give you a better shot of getting it done. You have to find a way to talk to people in a way where they don't shut you off. You have to find a way to give a little, show a little respect, show that you're not the crazy demented complainer guy, show that you actually can see it from both sides of the equation. And then you can actually try to get something accomplished. But when you go in there guns blazing, acting like a maniac and everything in the world is bad, people just kind of shut you out. And I wish some smart people that have really good points would learn that approach is much better than the approach that they decide to take.
Yeah, I think that's well put. And yeah, just to underline what you said, to me, marketing the contest as a no takeout contest is correct, because that's what it is in the finals that you can buy into directly. If we did it all qualifying, it would, in other words, if no one could buy in, I still think you could market the fact that there's not an additional takeout in the finals, but I don't think you could call it a no takeout contest if you had to go through the qualifying system. But that's the difference. Some other people mentioned about the $1 million thing. To me, that was also legitimate because it was limited to 200 seats. The purse could be $1 million. Honestly, I expected a little bit more support from the advantage player community, for lack of a better word. I really thought up to a couple of days before the event that we had a very real shot of selling the thing out. You hear so many people talk about how takeout is the number one issue to them. Here's a finals you can buy into directly with no takeout. I expected, just to be completely frank, I was very happy with the event overall. I expected a little bit more support from that aspect of the community. But these things happen, no big deal. It was a difficult spot on the calendar, Super Bowl Sunday, and I also spoke to some people, JK, who just said, you know what? It's a great opportunity. So glad you guys are doing it. I kind of wanted to watch one just to see what would happen because it is a new format. And I had multiple people tell me, hey, after having watched this and seen how it played out, I definitely want to participate next year, whether I qualify in or buy in. And I thought that was really cool. A very successful format. Props to DRF tournament director Michael Zapin. This idea was really, people have called it my brainchild, my baby. Not really. I mean, I heard the idea from Michael Zapin and latched onto it immediately because I thought it was a good thing for horse players. But he should get a lot of credit for not only coming up with the idea, but doing a good job throughout on the operations side at DRF tournaments. And as far as I could tell from the outside, it came off without a hitch.
Yeah, and I'll be honest with, and if and when Michael's listening, and you can pass it along to him, I think next year there's no reason to keep it limited at 200. I think that you take a little bit of a flyer and you raise it to like 250 or 300 because it's not going to be new. I know they're going to probably try to find a better time for it, and then also the idea that you're going to have a full year of qualifying. So a full year of qualifying for it, and I think that will make the difference to get it up. I mean,
potentially
or maybe
year plus.
Right, exactly. So
it's interesting. I can see it either way. Like, part of me, from a marketing point of view, feels like it would be hard. I don't know what I'd call it. I feel like the 200 that I pretty much know is gonna sell out if we do it a year from now. I'd be like super confident second time around calling it $1 million tournament. I don't know. I mean, I think we would get there obviously if we expanded it, but I just got to think about that from a marketing point of view. Like, what this always.
Well, you could call it. You could call it $1 million contest and be allowed to have 300 entries, and then it happens to be more.
Happens to be half again more. It's an interesting idea, and it's worthy of discussion. And I'm excited to see what happens next. DRF tournament's not exactly resting on their laurels. Can't talk about anything yet, but I'm hearing some exciting rumors about some other innovative contest opportunities that might be coming down the pike. Your trip to next year's World Championship of Handicapping can start as soon as this weekend. There's going to be a free game on Saturday where you have the opportunity to win your way in. There's also going to be qualifiers rocking and rolling throughout the weekend. Go to tournaments.drf.com to check out all of those opportunities. And I fully expect, JK, when you and I are in the ballroom at Treasure Island next weekend for another handicapping contest, I expect to see some people doing a little bit of multi-tabling on DRFT. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I think, I've said this before, one of my favorite qualifying strategies, no matter what kind of, price point you find yourself in, is putting some money in there and playing feeders and playing head-to-heads that are equal to your feeder amount. So, you get in there, let's just say there's a $22 a World Championship of Handicapping feeder that feeds into the 95, and then 95 feeds into the 580. Well, let's use the 95 as the example. If you play in the $95 feeder that feeds into the 580, and then you correspondingly play in a $100 matchup, then I've found that strategy is one that can keep you in business for a pretty long time, because the idea that you're going to be the best of 7 guys is likely, but the idea that you're going to be the best of 2 is significantly more likely. So if you can just win the matchup and lose the feeder, then you can kind of zigzag back and forth, and the days that you win both, you're adding to your bankroll and moving forward. So that's one of the starting qualifying strategies I would use if you're looking for a way to kind of get started qualifying for next year's WCH.
All right, good advice from JK. Let's talk for a minute. We don't, obviously, it's slightly awkward. We don't work with the NHC anymore directly, but both of us are heading out there for different reasons. JK because he qualified for this National Horse Players Championship happening this weekend in Vegas, and me, not only because it's great one-stop shopping of a lot of tournament players, but I'm going to be able to participate in the At the Races coverage with Steve Bick, which I'm excited about. Going to be doing a book signing. This I should tell people, probably a lot of people listening, this will be relevant info for. Book signing with Mike Maloney at the opening cocktail event at Treasure Island from 6 to 8 p.m. local time on Thursday. Looking forward to getting a chance to meet and greet some readers. So we both have different amounts of work to do this weekend. But JK, what are your thoughts as you approach this NHC, this event where you really exploded on the scene a couple of years back?
Yeah, I'm gonna try to do the same thing. The last 3 years I participated in this event, I went into it like so unbelievably over prepared. And the first year it worked out, but like I told you yesterday in a conversation, the 3 or 4 horses that really made the difference for me in the first NHC when I got 2 entries to the final table, I'm telling you, those had nothing to do with preparation. Like I just I had the horses that I kind of wanted to play because of preparation, and then I just kind of stumbled across these horses in those other situations. The other 2 years, I didn't even make the cut. So this is going to be my first year playing in the NHC with just 1 entry, and that was kind of by design. I didn't really try to get a second one. I'm going to just show up, treat it like a normal day at the races. I'm going to, obviously still do my thing where I go to bed at midnight every night and get up at 5 and go down to the ballroom with my house shoes on and music and first one there and start to handicap. But I'm not going to do any pre-work like I've done in the past. I'm not going to stress about it. I'm just going to go in and just try to relax and have fun and pick horses and hope that it turns out to be something better than it has been the last 2 years. So there's probably a better chance that if the first click of the leaderboard this time I'm leading, hopefully I don't get booed like I did that one time. But
that was one of the great moments in NHC history, as far as I'm concerned. It was hilarious.
And the worst part about it is like, this is going to sound like I'm not accepting the fact that there's probably people that don't like me. But I do think that a majority of those boos were probably just like friends of mine or acquaintances that thought it would be funny to razz me a bit.
It is entirely possible. There are some other situations that might elicit some boos at this year's NHC, but we'll hope that all stays checked. I don't know if you've been following your friend Nissan Gabay's Twitter feed, JK.
I have seen it. So, as many things that Nissan does, I don't agree with. I think I don't totally agree with everything he says, but I do think that he has some valid points that likely should be addressed, and hopefully they will, and we'll see what happens moving forward.
Maybe you have to be particularly political because of your connection to the event through the Players Committee. I don't have that obligation. So just to sum it up, he was just and I'm totally sympathetic to this. I like Nissan, and I think that there was definitely some room to fully explain his point of view, even in the whole Breeders' Cup situation. I had longed to get his point of view in the paper on that, and unfortunately it didn't work out for whatever reason. But I don't want anybody to think there's any animus there, because there is not. And I think he's just making the good point that think of it from his point of view. He has this huge contest win in the Breeders' Cup contest, and just because of the way that whole situation played out, even though no DQ was made, the controversy had to diminish to some degree anyway, the emotional value of this huge win, which, looked at from his point of view is kind of a validation of your lifetime's work as a horse player to go to one of the biggest tournaments, one where you'd had some tough beats in the past, and to walk out on top of the hill. And then, instead of that being the story becomes, well, what's collusion? And like I said, even though he's exonerated, it still had to take some of the emotional pleasure out of the win. And here he is now with a chance at a bonus of $3 million, in addition to whatever the winner's purse is going to be, close to $4 million, with the specter hanging over his head. Hey, if I do really well, are people going to say that I did something untoward? And he just wants some clarity in what the rules are at the event. Now, other people have said, a lot of people have made the point, well, why don't he and his partner just play their entries individually, no coordinating of picks or anything like that, and then there won't be a problem? And on one sense, that's an absolutely fair point. On another sense, he knows he doesn't know, he suspects there are other people playing that event in tandem, whether they're relatives or friends or this or that, and he just wants the rules to be the same for him as they are for everybody else, and to have that explained. I don't think it's too much to ask. Are you at liberty to comment on it at all? You can take the fifth on this because I know you're involved behind the scenes.
Yeah, no, I agree with the point of like, I mean, there's this discussion about the spirit of the rule and all that stuff, right? I mean, the NHC, you're allowed to have 2 entries. So it insinuates that you're allowed to have 2 entries, and that insinuates that having 3 entries is not what you're supposed to have. So I think that that's probably something that needs to be taken into consideration. Like someone said, like just play your 2 or your 1 and Kevin plays his 2 or whatever it is. And then there's nothing, there's no conversation. However, I do agree with you that they're probably, I mean, I understand the idea of being a little gun shy and like wondering like, well, how is our play going to be interpreted? If we happen to pick the same horse in one race, like, are people going to say we did that together? Is that going to be collusion? And so I think asking for clarification is definitely warranted and fair. And if I was him and I didn't get the clarification I want, I would take that as playing with 3 entries is not okay. And I would play with 2 or my 1 and Kevin can play with his 2 and whatever. But I understand his apprehension based on how it all unfolded for him at the Breeders' Cup. Because the truth of the matter is, if Nissan wins, it's going to be an uproar. Not an uproar, but there's going to be an issue, and everyone's going to accuse him of doing whatever, and then blah, 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 and it's going to be a big deal. So I think that he's right to kind of want to understand a little bit more of what he's walking into before he walks into it.
Yeah, I get the idea that there are those who like the days or long for the days when you could be a little more loosey-goosey about this stuff, and the NHC was almost just like this, this cool. I mean, it still is a really cool horse player party, but it's so much more than that because it's like we said with the BCBC, JK, it's the mo money, mo problems thing. The amount of money that's come into it, when you think about how much money they're going to be giving away Sunday night, you can't run it without like a clear delineation of what the rules are. Just sort of hoping people follow the rules or whatever having vague language to me doesn't cut it.
It's not the 75 people skipping through the hallway of Bally's in the first one. You know what I mean? It's there's a lot of money on the line. It's not your fantasy football league with Jim in the cubicle next to you, and you all put in $20, right? And it's serious money, and it needs to be treated as so with a clear understanding. I mean, and I'll say, like, just to make sure it's clear, like, I don't believe that Nissan and Kevin should be able to just go free reign with their 3 entries combined. I just don't. That's not, to me. I don't think that's fair. And so, and I've expressed that. So we'll see what ends up happening. I would imagine that they won't stop with the tweet. I'd imagine they'll be at the. We might have to stick around, Pete, on Thursday night for the question and answer of the rules. I usually leave by then.
It could be the best part of the evening. Forget the book signing.
I'm gonna get a popcorn. I'm gonna have Periscope ready. I'm gonna go to one of those little sidebars and get a Tito's and soda and just sit back and watch it all unfold.
Let's just hope you don't have any questions to ask of Nissan's buddies, because we know they're not talking to you. But it will be fun. It will be fun to watch this unfold in real time.
I'm thinking about bringing like a headscarf as like a peace offering to Christian to see if maybe that and like some green juice from Austin. And like a headscarf and like maybe we could have like a ceremony where I tie it on his head and then we're like all forgiven and we're friends.
I like that vision, JK. Who knew that? Add to your list of accolades, the peacemaker, Jonathan Kinchin. All right, enough about that. I will give one programming note. I'm not going to say try. We will be recording a show. It will air as if live on Friday, but Friday, the opening day out there, be pretty busy. So we'll probably record that on Thursday. Hopefully I can have the interview with Frank Polk in the can by then, and we can get to hear from our WCH champion as well. Expect to hear a lot of interesting interviews at the races with Steve Bick. I'll be a part of that coverage, the special tournament coverage, as much as he wants me, and we'll try to bring in, whatever interesting stories we can find out at the NHC. And of course, I would expect maybe to hear from someone like Frank or some of the other folks who did well at the WCH as well. should be pretty cool. Let's talk some racing, JK, and then let's loop back. Let's put a pin in Las Vegas. If we have time at the end, and I suspect we will, let's go back and talk a little bit at the end of the program about some of the places we like to hang out there. I rip off my friend Gil Alexander a lot on this show, the whole Tales from the Track concept stolen from his Storytime segment. He does an amazing, and everybody should listen to this, who's interested in Las Vegas. He does this Las Vegas lifestyle pod annually. It just came up. You can find it, Beating the Book is the name of the podcast, and that is absolutely worth a listen. But we'll just give a couple of our favorites. We'll chime that in at the end of the show. Let's move on to the races. What order do you want to do this in?
You want to start out east in the Withers? Is that, am I throwing you off? Or?
No, I like it. Your old friend Avery Island making a splash in the Withers, winning buyer of 87 for the Street Sense Colt. What did you think of the performance? What do you think of him going forward?
Well, I think, where the heck was he at when I had him singled to everything?
He was running at least 2 furlongs too short, is what he was doing.
I know. And the pick 5, we had heard that this was the best horse that Kieran had, 2-year-old, and unfortunately it didn't get there. I thought he was good. He ran a nice figure, and I thought he was good. He turned away a horse that I think will ultimately want to run a little bit shorter. 114 for Craig on time form, which is respectable enough at this juncture. But it was at 1 1/8, which is one of the things I like to see. I want to see horses winning at 1 1/8. The 1 16th race, I try not to get too excited about. So the fact that this one was at 1 1/8, he ran well at 1 1/8, and the Remsen as well. So distance and the Street Sense part suggests that he should go be able to run all day. So I thought he was good. Time form has all the early fractions coded red, so they were going on with it a bit. He's the type of horse, and I know we joked about this before the show. Is like, we can't just keep saying the same thing about these 3-year-olds. Like, oh, that was good. We'll see what happens. That was good. Yeah. We'll see what happens. But it really is true, and it's something that I've had to change doing. I've stopped falling in love with horses, because the beautiful thing about it is I don't have to bet the Derby until the first Saturday in May. So why do I need to make the decisions now? We don't do that about anything else in the world, to a certain extent. You don't have to make the decision. Why make the decision early?
You don't have Austin's college all picked out? He's not definitely going to Texas?
He's not going to go to A&M. And I can tell you who I'm not going to bet in the Derby too. So I think maybe the knots are easy to determine early. The do's are the ones that are a little bit harder. But Avery Island is one of those horses where I want to see him in the wood when he is facing other accomplished 3-year-olds that have shown the affinity to kind of continue to train on, and really be able to kind of form an opinion of him then. So he's either going to run really well in that race and kind of in a disadvantageous trip, and I'm going to love the horse going into the Derby, or he's going to kind of have everything his own way, not really run a fast figure, and then I'm going to kind of like lean in a different direction for him. So the jury is still out on Avery Island, but he didn't do anything to disappoint me on Saturday.
Now, what I liked about the effort, well, a couple things I liked about the effort. It seemed like some of the opponents really ran, which was great. And I like the fact that on paper, to me, it looked like it was going to be this easy wire win, and yet he really had to work for it and still won and still looked good. You know what I mean? If he'd looked good just wiring them and burying them and, going slow early and showing the finish we already knew he had, going a distance we knew he liked, that would be less impressive than the way it played out on the track. And my other note on the race is, I wish I could remember which listener it was, but somebody was ahead of us on this one, JK, who after the last race said he thought that Firenze Fire had that practical joke look, that really good horse, going to maybe find some of these distances a little too far, look for on the cutback, maybe a King's Bishop horse even. I'd say he had that look very much. Hard trier. I mean, had a perfect trip, yes, but perfect trip of his own making, and hard trier, and just looked to me to just run out of gas a little bit, and looks like one prime for the cutback. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I would imagine with that second, they'll give him one more shot. especially for I don't know who the connections are. It's not Pampa, is it? It's like red and green silks. I don't think it's Pampa, but anyways, it's not it's not Coolmore or Windstar or something like that where they got plenty of horses they can cut this one back now. I think they're going to kind of go on with it, I would assume, off of that second place effort and find out where this horse fits in terms of the Derby trail. But eventually, when the summer rolls around, maybe the Woody Stevens for Belmont weekend, we'll see this one going 7, and then he could show up in the King's Bishop or the Allen H. Jerkins, I think it's called now.
That's right. Did I say King's Bishop? Gosh, we need to.
No, I mean, maybe you did. I wasn't trying to
I think I might have. We need to have like a misspeaking jar, like sort of like a swear jar when we continue to make the same mistakes over and over again, and then we have to put a tenner in there, and at the end of the year we'll have a lot of money.
Are you referring to yesterday when I kept saying March instead of May?
Yes, that was very weird, JK. I was getting a little worried about you. It's good you're not trying to get into a center for assisted living or something. The price would have just gone way up. Mr. Amore Stable, the owner of Forensic Fire. It'll be interesting to see what happens there. Let's talk about some of these other 3-year-olds. While we're in the East, does that mean we should go? Should we head down south for a minute?
Yeah, I think we should head down south, and let's not skip over it because while we're talking about the one-turn variety, that horse Strike Power, we didn't talk about it. I don't know if you saw it. Was impressive. That horse is one of the Mark Hennig 3-year-olds, and he won really nice. I don't know what his time form figure was, but and I don't know if you have the buyers up. Anyways, but that's one to keep an eye out for. Maybe a horse that we could see in the Pat Day Mile, which typically is run now on Derby Day. So that could be one to keep an eye out for. But I assume you were looking to talk about the Holy Bull.
Correct, but you are right. 87 for the Speightstown Colt Strike Power in the Swale Stakes, and the good figure this time of year. One to definitely keep on the list for those type of races as the year goes on. I know we have some listeners who are already thinking about those Derby Day undercard races. Keep Strike Power on the short list. But yeah, I was talking about Audible, who was awesome visually and on the clock. What did you think?
You can't argue with the clock. You can't argue with Todd, and you can't argue with those white silks and the green and black star. It's one of those things that they always find a way to pop up into the mix. And we had a question I think earlier about Into Mischief as a sire, and the next horse I buy will be the first one, so I don't want to comment too much on the.
What about Long on Value?
Well, yeah, but you're absolutely right. I can't use that anymore. Oh, and this is really annoying, but sorry, you have to deal with it. Me and Pete own a horse. Did you see that they're going to change the distance to 5.5 for the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint?
No.
They're going to change the course, I think. So there's a possibility it's going to change to 5.5. If that happens, PTF, we can get one of those purple hats.
Oh my goodness! Well, let's not tempt fate just yet. But anyway,
back to Audible.
Tangent about Long on Value, and you reminded me we need to talk about that new Breeders' Cup Sprint race. I have a few things on my list here. We're going to easily have an hour. I was worried if we'd have an hour today. We have about an hour and a half on the paper right now.
Audible's good. He was really impressive. I tell you what. I mean, he's one of those horses. It just kind of felt a little not really like that because the story's completely different. It was a little like Always Dreaming feeling. It's like. How good is he? He's probably not good enough. Then he wins. He keeps winning, and so I think he's one that's definitely interesting. One of the horses that I was against that I I can almost guarantee you will be in one of my top 4 selections is Free Drop Billy, the Union Rags colt out of a mare that produced Hawk Bill, who we've talked about a number of times. A long distance horse that runs like 1.5 races. He might even run longer than that. You get Dale Romans and his ability to get these horses to finish at 1.25 miles on his home track. Free Drop Billy is one that's really, really going to be dangerous, I think, moving forward from a exotic standpoint and possibly even to win the race. He's kind of earned my attention, and I'm going to follow him a little bit closer. I would imagine he's pretty close on points already, right? I mean, with the Breeders' Futurity win, and then the second in the Holy Bull. I mean, one more board placing, I would imagine he's in the gate.
Trending in the right direction. It sounds like you've jumped ship from your Romans to mine for that underneath roll in the Derby verticals.
No, I thought his Mischief was. He had a little bit of trouble, but it wasn't that encouraging. I won't give up. There might be a situation where I'll look at him again in another spot. Maybe he shows up somewhere else. He'll obviously be a better price next time. But he wasn't encouraging. But he did have a slight excuse. A little bit of trouble, it felt like, early in the race, but kind of got shuffled back in between horses and all of that stuff. But I'm probably just making excuses at this point.
This can train on through the year. Anyway, it was a 99 buyer for Audible, and just taking a quick look at the times, that seems, if it's wrong one way or the other, it's probably slow, and it's probably dead on in reality. But I'm just saying it's not artificially inflated by any means. This was a fast race, and the horse really finished. And this is one to keep an eye on. This is one that I'm, unlike most of 9 out of 10, I'll probably of these prep winners. It's what you said before. We'll see. Nice race, nice horse. We'll see what happens. This is one who I think you can definitely confidently put on the short list of ones to follow if you're interested in trying to spot the Derby winner, and the horses are going to hit the board in the Derby from a few weeks out. Before we got on that tangent, you mentioned the question we received about Into Mischief as a sire. I don't know all that much about him. Like, from a technical point of view, I certainly know he's had a ton of success the last couple of years with juvenile horses. We mentioned Practical Joke before. That's him. Bunch of stakes winners. Seems like he's really turned a corner and is a hot property.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he's. I don't know how much it helped him as a stallion, how good Beholder was. I'm not familiar enough with the breeding market to know if like a really good half can make a horse a stallion. I do know the opposite, right? A half can make a broodmare, but can a half make a stallion? So I don't know how much that helped in with his stock. But then also, he can kind of get anything. He had Vijak, who was a graded stakes winner, and I want to say grade 1, but at least graded stakes winner on both surfaces going 2 turns. Practical Joke, graded stakes winner, grade 1 winner. And then you had Golden Sense and even Conquest Enforcer, who was good for a little while and on the turf going 2 turns. So definitely one that can definitely get you a good horse, and it's probably why he's getting so much attention.
Yeah, very, very versatile, very popular. From a handicapping point of view, I don't know, Dan Illman would probably be able to answer the question better than us. I always like his opinions about these sires and which directions their progeny are going to go. And of course, you can check out his work. He'll have a video review of this race in all likelihood up as we speak over on DRF TV. Does a lot of great job both previewing and reviewing races along with Mike Beer and TV's Matt Bernier. Anything else on the Holy Bull, or shall we move it out west?
Enticed wasn't very good. But he wasn't any worse than my pick, Tis Mischief, beating maybe like a length in that situation. So, but maybe he didn't train on, maybe he will, maybe it was something, maybe he wasn't ready. I'll have to keep an eye on him.
Okay, sounds good. What about the big prep out at Santa Anita, which was the Bob Lewis Stakes, won by Lombo with a buyer figure of 86?
Yeah, so this is the race I was cheeky on everyone in case I played in the contest.
Right. If you watched the show on Friday, first time I've ever said I'm not going to give you this pick because I've got my wise guys.
Yeah, I used on both entries. The horse went off at 9 to Kent DeSormo. Angle there was the 2-year-old race. The 2-year-old figure the horse earned in September was more with these horses. It ran a time for him back in September. One of the angles I really love is finding horses that those 2-year-old number, and then ended up on the poly, and then shows up here probably a little bit too far back, and he couldn't reel in loose winner. And Ayaka was up late. Maybe who doesn't watch enough races might think Kent wrapped up a little early. Kent was never getting. He's just taking care of it. And knew he was going to get second. So got the place point there in the contest. I would have the win and all, not to mention the one on the other horse kind of hurt. I thought Lombo was good. I mean, I'm not running to line in front of anyone who wants to be a wire-to-wire loose Santa Anita, but with a figure that's just average to modest, and it wasn't anything. It wasn't a 99 audible ran. So interesting. We'll see what happens moving forward. Ayakara might be one that I'll give a shot, but unfortunately, I don't think I'll get the 9-2 next time when there happens to be a little bit more pace signed on and so on and so forth. So, the other ones weren't that good anyways, in my opinion. So I'm not shocked that Regulate and Peace and Shiver Me Timbers didn't run well because I didn't like them. So I don't have a lot of smart things to say about those three and why they didn't run well.
Yeah, we sort of said on the podcast, though neither of us gave a selection in the race, we said our opinion is basically, especially for contests, but in life too, just looked like a good space to try to take on favorites because they didn't have any real edge on the numbers. All right, so I just received a message from you, JK. Do you have to split now, or what are you saying?
No. I'm just going to be on the fly. I'm going to be on the fly like the last 7 minutes of the show.
Oh,
just moving around.
That's no kind of problem. I'm sorry. I saw that out of the corner of my eye.
Yeah, no, I didn't mean to throw you off.
That's okay. While we're talking 3-year-olds, we teased on a recent show and then I think we just skipped doing the story. We were meant to do it on Friday about your conversation with Bob Baffert at the Eclipse Awards and how it may have changed your view of the Derby picture, one of the horses specifically at the top of the market in the Derby picture, and that's McKinsey. What do you want to tell us about that conversation?
Yeah, it was fun to hang out with Bob, and I don't think Bob really knows me from like racing. Just so everyone knows, he knows me because in my coaching career, I coached a young man who, well, not directly. We were on the same side of the ball. He played offensive line. I obviously didn't coach offensive line. He played. He's a 3-year starter at UCLA and now plays for the Miami Dolphins. Well, while he was at UCLA, he began dating Jill and Bob, but Jill's niece, Jill Baffert's niece. And so one day I was like I think I was on the Eclipse Awards or something, and Jake, the kid, Jake Brindle, pointed out to Bob like that was my coach. And then I met Bob one time at the Super Bowl, and so he says hi to me sometimes when he sees me. But
listen to this life, yes. He's hanging with Baffert. He's going to the Super Bowl. He's coaching NFL stars. Wouldn't you like to be Jonathan Kitchen just for that?
No, actually, Jake didn't really like me very much because my diva receivers were always not working nearly as hard as they were, and I think he kind of got annoyed at me. Like, I mean, obviously he didn't express it, but. He's a great kid. Anyways, so yeah, I was just talking to Bob a little bit after the Pegasus, and I was just like, I loved Mastery last year, and do you have a good one like that now? And he's like, yeah, I think I do, McKinsey. And I was like, really? And he like looked at me, and I think his words were like, McKinsey.
How much time did you have to drink at this point that you're doing Derby horse?
It was dark outside. He said he thought McKinsey's got a chance to be like Mastery good. He's got to sort some things out. And he thinks that he's got a chance to be Mastery good. So he's really high on the horse, and so that was encouraging because from what I understand, he's not one of those guys that like loves his horse all the time. He's not one. There's a lot of guys that you'll talk to. They always love their horse. Oh yeah, he's gonna run well. Oh, he's gonna run great. Oh, I love him. Oh, I love my horse today. Love my horse today. He's not from what I've seen, and even on interviews, he's not like that. So, he's got my attention. I'll keep an eye on the horse moving forward.
Did you specifically address any of, for lack of a better word, I'll call it goofiness that you and I had seen in the stretch the last 2 races that made us? We were both pretty cynical after the last race, and a lot of people on Twitter told us we were nuts and missing the boat. Interesting that Baffert agrees with them and not us. Just curious if he said anything specific about maturity or, or better lately in training or just anything to address those specific issues.
He didn't really say anything specifically, but the impression that I got from his comments were that the horse, was going to come around a bit more, and that was the impression I got. But that was just my impression.
Gotcha. Okay. Very cool. Very cool. All right, we got about 10 minutes left, and We've got to get to at least two things that I promised to get to. Let's go to the Breeders' Cup. You mentioned before about the distance of the sprint. Of course, the big news coming out about the Breeders' Cup this week, not the Belmont Derby. Oh my gosh, I did it, $5 in the jar. Not the Breeders' Cup Derby, which seems to have gone the way of the dodo, but a race that we actually sort of predicted when we were brainstorming about potential new Breeders' Cup races, JK. A turf sprint for juveniles. I'm super intrigued. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I think this is going to be a good one, right? Like, I think that it's probably not going to affect the races we already have at a mile. So I think it'll be good. I'm looking forward to getting some more European participation. It'll obviously be a full field. I saw a funny tweet the other day where someone said, "Congratulations to Wesley Ward on winning the first Breeders' Cup juvenile turf sprint." So I think he'll have a little bit more competition in America, I'd like to think. So I think it's good. I mean, I think it's fine. Hopefully it doesn't cannibalize the other events, and I don't think it will.
I don't think it will. I mean, to me, what I like about this is it really deserves to be a championship race to me, because especially from like a European mentality, there's such a difference between your sprinter types and those horses who are going to go on and run in the Group 1 sprints over there than the horses who are going to be pointed to the guineas and the Group 1 router types. It's really a distinct thing. I guess it's a little more, that concept might seem a little strange in strictly in terms, a juvenile turf sprint champion. I think it's a division that will continue to develop, and it also exists over there. You unmuted. You want to jump in here?
Yeah, do you think a 2-year-old could ever win that race, maybe win a couple of other Greatest Stakes races and be the 2-year-old champion?
Geez, I think it's the kind of thing that could happen in the right set of circumstances. I mean, I don't see a Euro coming over, winning just that race and winning our Eclipse Award for 2-year-old champion. But I mean, I think it would have to be a lot of moving parts, I think, to bring that scenario to life. Specifically, I think you'd have to have chaos among the routers. But you'd like to, if the division works and if more of these races pop up and if it becomes a thriving division throughout the U.S., not only do I think they could maybe elevate to that, but it could become its own separated out division. I mean, if the racing is good and it becomes an important part of the sport, I don't see why that isn't a possibility in the future. So this is the one that I like. I agree. It's not going to hurt those other races. They're oversubscribed. I said to Rob Dove the other day, one of the top 10 pro punters in the UK today, when we were talking about this race, I said to him, I'm a little bummed because I feel like, we were always able to do a pretty good job identifying which of the horses in the mile race, juvenile mile and the 16th, whatever they run it at, won't be able to stay. And he was like, yeah, but so can everybody else. Like, look at the prices those horses are. They're always $1 million. And, he's absolutely right. And that's really just selfish anyway. The question is, what deserves to have the race? What will be a fun race? What will be an interesting betting race? I think this hits it hits all cylinders. I think it's going to be successful. I think it's the right call. Kudos to them for putting it forward. And like you said, JK, a lot of European participation. I think Ward, I think it's a race he'll probably target, but I wouldn't hand it to him just yet. There's some pretty good sprinters that they're probably not bothering with now to run the mile and a 16th, who they'll be very happy to bring over and sprint. And by that time in the year, to me, a lot of the Ward advantage is precocity and his training methods that really bring out that precocity. By the end of the year, I think we'll have a real horse race, and I look forward to seeing it. Any further comments on that one before we talk Vegas?
From a betting standpoint, it's going to be a full field. We know that. There's going to be 14 horses subscribed to it, and it'll be a great betting opportunity. I mean, I don't see what the problem is, really. I mean, I guess you're giving out a trophy to whatever. I'm all for it. I don't see why anyone would complain.
It's a laboratory for chaos. I mean, that's a fair assessment to make. I mean, I'm not saying it's the race I'm going to be handling the most on Breeders' Cup Day. And contest players better beware. I could definitely see something crazy happening. 2-year-olds sprinting, all that shipping is going to be involved.
It's going to be a much cooler race when it's down the hill at Santa Anita.
You and that hill at Santa Anita, a love affair written in the stars, JK. Let's talk Vegas for at least a minute here at the end of the show. Actually, we've got plenty of time left. Might have a chance to loop into one more thing, but we've gotten some questions about where to hang out, sports books, restaurants, bars. I'll admit I get pretty lazy when I'm out there because I'm typically working, so I'm staying in a very tight circumference. Maybe you can bring in something a little more interesting.
Yeah, so one of my favorite things to do is God bless the Treasure Island for being supportive of racing and partnering with the NTRA on hosting the event. But I like to hit that little skywalk over to there's two easy ways to get to the Wynn and easy ways to get to the Venetian. And I usually try to get over there to eat and to hang out. And in the past, we've gone to both of those places to find a table in the sports book to handicap on Wednesday and Thursday. And I would imagine we'll do the same. Treasure Island's cool. There's a lot and the other thing about Treasure Island, there's so many horse players. Like, it's hard to not see someone you know. And when you're trying to get your work done, that's pretty challenging inside of itself. So I usually like to try to run over to those two spots and hang out there. And the casino vibe is a little bit better over there as well. So I prefer that.
Yeah, one place specifically that we've really enjoyed. I was interested to hear it given some love on this year's Beating the Book Vegas Lifestyle Pod. Again, a must listen from our friend Gil Alexander. But his Yardbird, I think fairly randomly discovered it pretty much when it opened, I guess, a couple of years ago, and was very impressed by the local beer list. Some really smart takes on, I guess you'd say, Southern food. But very like modern and delicious. And
right.
I love that place.
Yeah, well, and one of my other wise guy spots at the Venetian, it doesn't look like it is as good as it is, but my partner in crime and I have been Venetian goers for a while, Robert, and we always go to this spot called Noodles Asia. It's right by the sports book. You can technically sit in Noodles and watch the races. You can see them from the glass window, but you can also get it to go and then hop into the sports book and get right into the middle of the action. But it's really, really good Asian. So we always get there at least once. And so there's a new restaurant across the street from there, or across the hall from there, that just opened. What is it called? Black Tap? Is that what we?
Yeah, Black Tap Burger or something.
Yeah, Black Tap Burger. I guess there's one in New York somewhere, but it's a kind of a craft burger, craft beer, super large milkshake spot. So I'll be attacking that at some point for obvious reasons, and the obvious one should be the milkshake.
Do they have boozy milkshakes there? Is that a possibility? Have you called to check?
I have not called, but I can assure you that we'll make our own.
There you go. I'm looking forward to checking that out. Yeah, for a super adventurous across Vegas list, again, check out the Beating the Book show. I will mention one more thing. On Wednesday, speaking of Gil, I'm going to be a guest along with Mike Maloney on VSIN, the Vegas Sports and Information Network. Gil does the morning show out there. We'll probably be on in the 11 o'clock hour Eastern time on Wednesday. Gosh, on Wednesday, isn't that tomorrow? Yeah, that's tomorrow. Got to get my head right here. But that's going to be a lot of fun to be chatting with him. And the South Point, where that show takes place, supposed to be a terrific place to hang, bet sports, watch races, chance to interact with legends of the sports betting world, and have some fun while you're at it. So I'm going to be heading over there for tomorrow, and who knows, maybe spend a little bit of Thursday out over that way as well. So if you're looking for me, that's where you can find me. Just about a minute left, JK. Anything else left to button up regarding any of the stuff we've been talking about?
No, and then the other thing I'll say is I wouldn't sleep on the train over to the Mirage. That's pretty cool too. We went to this like food truck looking spot. I don't remember what it's called, but going over the Mirage, they've got good restaurants there. They have a steakhouse there. We went with the Matisse crew last year, and the famous Marvin. If you see Marvin out there, he's a guy with a mustache hanging out with the Matisse guys. He's a legend in his own right. So if you have an opportunity to talk to him, make sure you do that.
Marv is fantastic. I believe he's on Twitter at MarvBetRunner you want to get Marv going, talk to him about old doo-wop records. I greatly regret that my father never got the chance to talk about old doo-wop records with Marv, because it was something that he enjoyed as part of his musical development. And Marv has tremendous musical knowledge and great stories of his travels all around the world, and especially in Las Vegas. Terrific dude. And that's right, we're going to get to hang out with him. Should be a super fun weekend. All right, JK, that is all we got. I want to thank you for coming on today and for your thoughts as always, and for keeping it clean for the most part. Always appreciated. I want to thank Willie Nile for letting us use Dear Lord from his debut album as our theme song. You can find more of his music, willienile.com. Travis Stone for providing the voiceover. Producers Craig and AJ for all the hard work that they do. Most of all, I want to thank all of you for listening, especially those of you who took the time to submit questions. If you've got more for us, I'm at Looms Boldly on Twitter. He's at UT Big Hair, or you can hit us up, podcast@drf.com. That's it for today. We will be back on Friday, God willing, and the creek don't rise. I'm Peter Thomas Fornatow. May you win all your photos.